one drop that falls, many drops fall. When many raindrops fall, they turn into a river. And if several rivers come together and go down, they make a flood.
The Lavalas movement and the flood of people power it unleashed have roots in the history of suffering of the Haitian people. Haiti is located on the western part of the island Hispaniola, which it shares with the Dominican Republic. The French turned it into their most profitable slave colony. But in 1791, the slaves revolted. By 1804, the slave armies defeated Napoleon's legions, making Haiti the first independent black republic in the world. Fearing the example would spread, the United States refused to recognize Haiti, beginning an uneasy relationship between a country founded by slaves and one founded by slave owners. At the turn of the century, America's view of Haiti was summed up by Secretary of State William Jennings Bryan, who said, "Dear me, think of it, niggers speaking French."
You know, more than 2 years before we entered World War I, we decided we had to control Haiti.
Here's Port-au-Prince, Haiti, in 1915, chief city of an island nation torn by internal troubles. Behind these scenes of peace and semi-tropic tranquility, there's uneasiness and unrest.
The U.S. government wanted to control the strategic windward passage between Haiti and Cuba, the major shipping route to the Panama Canal and the Pacific. So they created a pretext to justify a military intervention.
And then in 1915, United States Marines land in Haiti to battle Haitian bandits threatening destruction of American properties, and native bandits quickly head for the hills. This puts immediate end to troubles in populated areas, but Marines prepare to drive into interior and rout the insurgents out.
The arrogance with which we went about it, when you think of a young Franklin Delano Roosevelt as an assistant secretary of the Navy, bragging, I can see him there bobbing on the deck now, and he's writing the Constitution for the free people of Haiti. There can't be a more imperialist mentality than that. These people are too dumb to write their own Constitution. I have to do it for them.
Haiti's own Dartigouanav is elected provisional president, and the riot-ridden republic begins to function as a nation once again. Here are troops of the Palace Guard, but United States Marines are ever present.
It was a murderous, bloody intervention which destroyed the constitutional systems, reinstated slavery. The Marines stayed there for 20 years. What they left behind them was a military force, a National Guard, which essentially took over and has been ran it under one or another dictatorship since.
In 1957, the United States propped up the regime of Haiti's most feared president, François Duvalier. Known as Papa Doc, he was a country doctor who became a despot. To ensure he would not be overthrown by the army like his predecessors, Papa Doc built up his own vigilante militia, the infamous Tonton Macoots. Volunteers for the Macoots were paid by having free license to steal and extort from the people they tortured, raped, and murdered. Toward the end of his life, Duvalier cemented his ties to Washington and arranged for his son, Jean-Claude, to succeed him. After Papa Doc's death in 1971, 19-year-old Baby Doc took over as president for life. Baby Doc plundered the national treasury and, with army support, turned Haiti into a major drug transshipment stop. In In 1986, a popular uprising ended the 3 decades of Duvalier dictatorship. Baby Doc was flown into exile aboard a U.S. government jet, taking a vast fortune and leaving behind a devastated but relieved country.
The transitional government that was named after Duvalier, Jean-Claude Duvalier, fell was an army-led government, the CNG. And the army has shown little willingness to stay out of political affairs since then. There have been 7 or 8 coups since 1986, and the army has been involved in every one of them.
They sing, nothing has changed. Things are still the same. The soldiers have become recruits and are breaking heads. Despite signs of deepening army entrenchment, the country tried to hold elections in 1987. They were destroyed by the military and the Makuts, who slaughtered voters as they tried to cast their first ballots. At the same time, a young Catholic priest, Jean-Bertrand Aristide, began drawing attention for his outspoken criticism of the army and foreign domination of the country. Inspired by the Latin American Church's liberation theology, Aristide was dedicated to helping the poor. He worked for years with orphans in the vast shantytown La Saline, where he was affectionately called Titide.
Ce moment de plénitude, j'ai surpris un élan de la vie. Ce moment de plénitude, j'ai surpris un élan de la vie.
In 1988, as Aristide said Mass, his church, Saint Jean Bosco, was attacked and burned by armed thugs.
When the Mass began, there were many people who began to run, scatter. Many Tonton Makuts who have red bandanas here on their arms and pistol in their hands. Machetes, daggers, knives, and they killed many people. More than 38 people fell here on the ground inside Saint Jean Bosco Church.
I was there waiting for death. Unfortunately, I'm still alive. Fortunately. So I give my life to my brother and sister because it's love for me. And in French I say, because I already died, that's why I'm still alive.
I know Father Aristide very well. For us here in Haiti, Father Aristide is a savior. It is only he that can save Haiti from its miserable situation. Father Aristide and the poor are one.
On the top of the hills, there are lots of big bourgeois, lots of rich people, lots of people with lots of money. The liberation of Haiti will be done with the cooperation and the participation of the rich and the poor who till the land. For together they will have dialogue. For together they will find a way, for those who have none and those who have plenty, to make the gardens grow more vegetables, so that the vegetables can sell better, so that there are machines to carry the vegetables instead of the head of the tired and exhausted peasant.
Repeated violence by the army and the international outrage that followed finally forced the Haitian government to agree to a new election, this time monitored by the United Nations. That election, the country's first free vote, was held on December 16, 1990.
Can I ask who you're voting for president?
The U.S., which had backed another candidate, and Haiti's ruling class were shocked when Aristide, who had entered the race at the last minute, swept 67% of the balloting against 10 opponents.
Jeunesse Chalma-et-Peralt là, est-ce que nous sentons sans Chalma-et-Peralt là couler dans veine nous?
Youth of Haiti, do you feel that there are valiant young men in the country? Do you think there are brave young women in the country? Have you decided to leave quarreling, back to back, dog eat dog, all together, helping each other, walking side by side, loving each other? No wonder I am so crazy about the young people.
Let me remember, I am the one who is following Haitian people instead to be the one who is leading in the way to say, oh, do that, don't do that. In Haiti, we could realize a political revolution on December 1691 without weapons, because we use our mind, because we use our heart, we could do that.
But Haiti's new day was not celebrated by all. Those who had enjoyed power and privilege in the past were troubled.
But the people has made a choice, and that is bringing all the trouble. And I think people calling it democracy, the fact that Aristide has been elected by 67% of the population, even of 70, I think, and it is a bad way of seeing democracy, because it can be a terrible miscalculation due to the fact that the people, you cannot depend on the people which does not know how to read to make a good choice.
One of the first goals of the Aristide administration was a nationwide literacy program. They also worked for AIDS education, a new minimum wage, and a long overdue land reform program. The Lavalas movement tapped a long-neglected pride, with people working together to rebuild and cleanse a devastated society.
You have to know that during 7 months, this government, we changed everything. We refused the corruption, we refused the drug, we refused contraband, everything. It was a dream who came true for Asian people. It's the reason why they wanted to kill that dream. And when they wanted to kill Aristide, they wanted to kill Asian people.
On a speech in front of all the nation, he made the first mistake against the army by asking to resign 7 generals. That was for us a kind of signal saying that we were going to have trouble with this guy.
People will tell you the elites of the country were prepared from the day after his election to unseat him and were waiting for the appropriate moment. These people were angered because the privileges that they had long enjoyed were removed from them. Among those privileges, the right not to pay taxes, the right to sort of act as a law unto themselves, People claim that because Aristide had cracked down, or at least begun to crack down against contraband and drug trafficking, that elements involved in those two areas were particularly motivated against him.
The American embassy and community were also not happy with Aristide, who they perceived as a threat to their business interests.
Because I live here, I can't be afraid. I live here. I was a little wary of some of the things that he was saying. He was starting to try to make the populace understand that they were low because there was an aristocracy. Most of the populace here understand that without the aristocracy, they can't survive.
Mais toujours été gain des camps. Donc c'est pas Aristide qui prêchait l'idée des classes.
Two camps exist and always remain. It's not Aristide who preaches class struggle. It exists and can be seen in the country. Did Aristide say there are poor people and rich ones? Can't you see there are poor ones and rich ones? Don't you see there is a disparity, a sort of barrier between rich and poor? Therefore, Aristide does not preach class struggle. He simply remarks it's there. He is pointing the finger to say, look at misery. Look at the money being wasted. Is that preaching class struggle? Is it? When in actuality it exists, he only points the finger at it to say this should not be there. There should not be people so comfortable who are bathing in luxury. People have baths for their dogs while others have no water to drink. Is this class struggle?
In September of 1991, President Aristide addressed the United Nations.
Let the echo of the democratic creed resound around us also. We believe in these 10 democratic commandments. We believe in this democratic policy. We believe in the meeting at which there will be no minority on the table, nor any majority under the table, but all shall be around the democratic table. So be it. In the name of the people and its sons and its Holy Spirit. Amen.
Aristide's success on the world stage only hastened the plots against him. He had survived at least 4 assassination attempts. On his return from the UN, he was to be victim of one more, but his security team foiled the attempt at the airport. Aristide immediately rallied the people at the palace.
My sisters, my brothers, who are born in the bourgeoisie in Haiti, who do not like to see the bourgeoisie fight with the people, and the people fighting with the bourgeoisie, but who also know that the bourgeoisie has to conform according to the laws of democracy and according to the rules of democracy.
He was saying that the last chance of rich people, because if after the weekend they don't move, they don't show clearly that they want to help, he was sorry for them.
I speak with you like this because I gave you 7 months to conform, and the 7 months are up today.
Could you describe the night of the coup?
On the Sunday at 9 o'clock, we began to hear the shooting. And when we realized it was a coup, I called Mr. Sedouas. And he told me that the soldiers was not happy. I say, it's not a reason why to make a coup. He said, Madam, you don't understand nothing.
Colonel Raoul Cedras was promoted to Army Chief by Aristide in recognition of his supervision of the December 1990 election. Only 7 months later, he led the coup against the president.
Come on, these guys, you know what it is? They're going crazy, man. Be careful, man.
The coup happened on a Sunday night. The army was circulating around town saying, no, this is just a small little affair between the military. You can go back to your houses. And And then Monday morning, they started driving around shooting people. I think a friend of mine went to the morgue on Monday morning and saw people there said there were 140 bodies in that particular morgue.
After years of poverty and oppression, the Haitian people finally found a voice to rally them.
After we passed 1804, we said we were independent, but did we truly have our freedom? When you tell me you are living in hunger, can you tell me that you are free?
Jean-Bertrand Aristide's story, the saga of a priest who became president, is also the story of Haiti's first grassroots movement for democracy, Lavalas, which means a cleansing flood.
When the rain is falling, is it just one drop that falls? Many drops fall? When many raindrops fall, they turn into a river. And if several rivers come together and go down, they make a flood.
The Lavalas movement and the flood of people power it unleashed have roots in the history of suffering of the Haitian people. Haiti is located on the western part of the island Hispaniola, which it shares with the Dominican Republic. The French turned it into their most profitable slave colony. But in 1791, the slaves revolted. By 1804, the slave armies defeated Napoleon's legions, making Haiti the first